I'm going to start with an acknowledgement of country. Legal Aid Queensland acknowledges and respects the First Nations custodians of the land where our offices stand and where we work to help disadvantaged Queenslanders uphold their legal rights in our justice system. We pay respect to their elders, law, customs and creation spirits, and we recognise that these lands have always been places of ceremony, teaching, research and learning. And we acknowledge the important role First Nations people play in our community and in improving our legal system. So welcome everybody to today's webinar, which is on how Legal Aid Queensland can help your clients. My name is Catherine Gorter. I'm sorry that I'm off screen. Unfortunately, our webcam only can fit 2 people on it, but I'm your facilitator today, and I'm from Legal Aid's Community Legal Education team. With us today, we have 2 presenters. We have Bradley Halbron, who's Acting Director of our Information, Advice and Partner Services, and Lisa Barnes, who's Acting Director of our Grants team. Thank you very much for both making time to be here.
Thanks, Catherine.
A little bit of housekeeping to run through before we get to today's webinar content. So just a reminder that the webinar is being recorded today and the laws and content are accurate as at today's date. You can find out more information about our community legal education program and our webinars on the Legal Aid Queensland website. Should you have any issues with audio or video today within the webinar, we cannot help you, unfortunately, during the live webinar, but if you contact GoToWebinar's customer support for technical help, they may be able to help you. So today we are expecting to run the webinar for the full hour. We'll have about 45 minutes of presentation time and we are allocating about 10 minutes for questions. So if you do have any questions you want to ask of our presenters, please pop them in the question box on your screen and we'll look at those in the Q&A section at the end of the webinar. A number of people did submit questions in advance. Thank you so much for that. We shared them with our presenters and we've included that content as much as we can in the webinar presentation today. If something you asked was not covered, we will follow up with you individually after the webinar. A copy of today's PowerPoint slides are available for handout as a download. You can download that now through our software, or you can access a copy of those when we send the link to the webinar recording after the webinar. We're going to start with a few polls just to get to know who's in the audience today so we can make sure that we tailor our answers to you. So the first poll is looking at what region do you work in, and I'll just launch that online so you can answer that. So the answer options are South East Queensland, Far North Queensland, Regional Queensland, or outside of Queensland. So I'll just let you take some time to look at those options today. I'm just checking everyone can see the PowerPoint slides. Yes, that's all working fine. Okay, I'll just close off that poll and I'll share the answer. Okay, so we've got 71% of people attending from South East Queensland, about 30% from Far North and 16% from Regional Queensland. So welcome everybody who's joining us today. Our next poll is what is your role? And I'll just launch that poll now. Okay, so the answer options are support worker, financial counsellor, or health education worker, social worker, lawyer, or other. And I'll give you about 5 more seconds to answer that question. Looks like we have a lot of other at this point in time. A couple more seconds, and I'll close that one off. And watch the answers, share the answers. So yes, our latest category today is other. So welcome to all of you. We'll have a look at who you are after the webinar and see who's joining us today. But probably our largest categories are lawyer and social worker today, followed by financial counsellor or health education worker. So thank you and welcome everyone. We've got one more quick poll for you all. And that is, how would you rate your knowledge of Legal Aid Queensland? So just let me launch that final poll for you all to answer. And this just helps us get a sense of what you know about us and what we need to touch on today. So great. So I can see lots of people have a good level of knowledge. A couple more seconds and we'll share those results. Okay, I'll close that off. So about 46% of our attendees have some knowledge of legal aid, so that's great. We do have about half of our respondees saying limited knowledge. So hopefully all of you in that category learn a lot in today's webinar and we answer a lot of questions you might have about our organisation. Now I'll just move on to the next slide. So just a brief overview of what you will learn today. So we'll do an overview of the services that Legal Aid Queensland offers. That includes the types of legal problems we can help with. We'll look at who is eligible for legal aid, how to refer people to legal aid. We'll talk about the range of free publications and resources and legal information that are available on our website, and we'll touch on our community legal education program. So I'd like to hand over to Bradley now to run through some content. Thanks, Brad.
All right, well, thank you everyone for joining us today, and it's lovely to see people from right around Queensland come along, probably in your lunch break. So thank you for that. Lisa and I have been preparing this for a few weeks now, so I really hope that we can help you or increase your understanding about how legal aid can help the people that you work with, because we know from the poll that we've just done that we've got a lot of people here who support other people, so that's really great to see. About Legal Aid Queensland, so we're an independent statutory authority, and that simply means we're set up by an Act of Parliament. It's the Legal Aid Queensland Act. We receive funding from both the state government and the federal government, and that's because as you probably know, our legal system, we have our state parliament which makes laws for Queensland, and our federal parliament which makes national laws. And national laws are things like, one of the big ones is for family law matters, and the family court, federal circuit and family court. And then things in state courts might be criminal law matters or some civil disputes that happen in our state courts. So we get money from both levels of government to support the areas of law which they legislate in and in which they operate courts. And a lot of our money, as you'll see throughout this presentation, is spent on helping people go to court, but also giving information and advice services as well. We've grown in the more than 20 years now that I've been at Legal Aid. I was interested to see this statistic actually, that we now have over 700 staff, and we work in 14 offices right throughout Queensland. So from as far west as Mount Isa and Toowoomba, north to Cairns, down to Southport, and basically everywhere in between, we have local legal aid offices which you can come into and come to our front counters and get information and be booked for advice and get information about grants of legal aid as well. We have lawyers in all of our offices who specialise in various different areas of law, such as criminal law, family law, domestic violence, child protection, as well as civil lawyers as well. And I will have some more to say about the areas of civil law that Legal Aid covers a little bit later on in the seminar. Interesting fact, we are the largest criminal defence firm in Queensland. We have a lot of in-house criminal lawyers and indeed barristers who go to our higher courts and represent our clients. But as I've said, family law, anti-discrimination, human rights, consumer rights, mental health law, veterans matters, we cover a wide range of areas. I guess the best way to split this up is the three ways that are currently outlined on the screen. They're the three punchy things that we do. We give legal advice, and we can do that either face-to-face in one of our offices or sometimes by video conference, particularly That might happen if you have a client who's in prison. We video link with prisons quite regularly, but we can also do other video conferencing advice. But a lot of our advice is done over the telephone. And we give advice in just so many different areas of law, all the ones that I've just covered. There are quite a few areas. We give legal information. Anyone in Queensland can access legal information that we prepare. It's on our website, or again, if you come into the office, there's plenty of information and some how-to guides. I've brought a little selection with me today. I've whipped down to our Brisbane front counter. We've got so many of these great little guides that are in plain English and can walk you through so many different legal topics. Just the ones I've grabbed here, and as I said, we've got heaps. But have you been in an accident? Have you been charged with an offence? Are you struggling to pay a loan? How to apply for a domestic violence order? And we've got plenty of those resources free, available on our website or from our office to any Queenslander. And the final thing, which Lisa's going to probably talk a little bit more about later, is we also provide money for representation at courts, and that can be in criminal law matters, family law matters, and some civil law matters as well. And you need to apply for a grant of aid to get that. And as I said, Lisa's going to chat to you a little bit more about that soon. Unfortunately, we can't do everything. Whilst the governments, both state and federal, do give us money, it's not an endless supply of money. So we have to be careful and targeted in what we do help people with, our, particularly vulnerable Queenslanders who need our assistance. So we've got to focus on those people. And in fact, our Act tells us that we must do that. So there are things that we don't help with, and you probably won't be surprised to hear that's things like business disputes. We don't help out with commercial transactions. We don't really deal with tenancy disputes because there are specialist services who do that. We don't do wills or powers of attorney, again, because there are specialist services that do that. We don't really do personal injuries law, although legal aid can sometimes help with some funding, in particular personal injuries cases. Things like tax and superannuation, workers' compensation, planning and environment law are things that we don't provide legal advice or representation for. Getting in touch with us. We have a website, phone or email, but the best way to do it, as I said, our website has so much information on it and you can contact us through there. There are contact forms, but the best way to contact us is via the phone or one of our front counters coming into the office. Our contact centre has really highly trained client information officers who, and this relates probably to one of the questions that we got asked in preparing for this seminar. But one of the things that our CIOs are trained to do is really talk to our clients, really get an understanding of what they need help with, and then they triage them and make sure they get to the best part of legal aid that can help their service. So the best way to do it is to come to a front counter, talk to a CIO, or give us a call on our 1300 number. Because our CIOs will be able to identify if it is a problem that legal aid can help with, and if we can't, we've got a great directory of organisations that we can refer people to. Our contact centre has multiple phone lines which we answer. Our main one is our legal information line, and that's our 1300 651 188. If you have an inquiry about a grants issue, we have a grants line. We have an Indigenous line, and that's really important because we prioritise answering those calls as we do our prison line. The reason for prioritising the prison line is prisoners in Queensland prisons are limited to 10-minute phone calls, so we have to prioritise answering those calls so they don't run out of time and get hung up on. And another line, for example, is our disaster line, and I'll have some more to say about that soon. Online and email inquiries, we can respond in general terms to email, but as I said, if it's a really client-specific issue, they really do need to talk to one of our CIOs just to make sure they get to the right spot. Natural disaster line, and this happens, this line is open all the time, but we do make reference to it on our social media, and the government, when they put out press releases, quite often refer to it. When we have cyclones, as we did earlier this year in March, and if there's bushfires or flooding, severe weather, we do have this natural disaster line which you can call, and we do have expert lawyers available to provide advice, particularly in relation to things like claiming on your insurance and things like that. So that's a really important number, I think, to have in your little back pocket there for the people that you deal with as well. As I said, our Indigenous hotline is available for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. It's a prioritised line to make sure that we provide good level of support to our Indigenous people here in Queensland, our First Nations people here in Queensland. This is not an exhaustive list, but these are just sort of some of the areas in which if you call Legal Aid and we identify that you do have an issue, that we can provide advice in. So you can be booked in. One of our lawyers will talk to you face-to-face or over the phone, try and identify what the facts of the legal problem are and give you some really good, structured, tailored advice to that issue. So things like anti-discrimination, child support, consumer protection issues, counselling notes is an important one. In courts these days, you know, often people will issue subpoenas. If they're to medical professionals or counselling professionals, there's a process that you need to go through in order for people to access those, and so we give advice about that. NDIS, the National Disability Insurance Scheme, a really important one. We have a specialist traffic law clinic. I think that's off the top of my head, I think it's Tuesdays and Thursdays. We've got some really great lawyers who have astounding knowledge of Queensland traffic law. It always blows me away. Employment issues.
I'm just going to ask one question, Bradley.
Yep.
Someone's just asked, what sort of advice do we give re NDIS? Is it appeals?
I think we do, yes. But again, if you do have clients who are having NDIS issues, I'd really encourage you to give us a call, because we can triage them and make sure that they end up in the right clinic. But yes, we've got some lawyers there who do a lot of work around the NDIS space. And probably some of the big ones as well, criminal law, family law, we get a lot of these inquiries, and a lot of people booked into clinics for advice on those matters, as well as domestic and family violence, and things like if you've had a motor vehicle accident. Okay, great guide. just plugging our guides. I want to spend a little bit of time on this particular topic. As I said, we do give advice and indeed representation in domestic and family violence matters. And just to be a little bit more specific there, we can book people in and give them advice and help them with protection orders, giving advice on how to leave a relationship, resolving disputes, parenting arrangements, and even elder abuse. So there are duty lawyer services, and I'll probably cover off a little bit more on this as well. So book in for advice or even some representation at court. Our farm and rural legal service, again, this is another really sort of unique service which Legal Aid offers. So this is really important for those of you who are probably in regional areas of Queensland. If you're supporting farmers or people who have debt problems or having disputes with their lenders. We have lawyers who can give advice about dealing with those issues. As I've said, I've probably covered this off already a little bit, but go to our website. There's so much information on there. There's fact sheets, there's guides, they're downloadable. You can print them off. Call us on our information line or come into one of our many offices throughout Queensland. The sorts of information that we can give in criminal law, we can talk about in dealing with police, and we get these calls, I can tell you, because I see them coming through every day. People who the police want to talk to them about an issue, we can give advice about your rights and talking to police. If you have been charged with an offence, we can give advice about the particular offending and also going to court and court processes. If there's diversion options available, and indeed we have some phone numbers you can ring for that. If there's drug diversion at court, our duty lawyers will be able to point you in the right direction. If you're a witness, we can give some advice. We have a whole team of people who support people who are in custody, who are in prison, our prison advice service. And of course, one of the things that Lisa here specialises in is young people in the justice system as well. A whole team, Youth Legal Aid, to deal and help support clients who are young people who are in trouble.
Mm-hmm. And there's a specialist line we could probably mention,
yep.
The youth advice line. It's manned from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday to Thursday, and from 8 a.m. right through over the weekend until 5 p.m. on Sunday. So that's, the number is 1-800, it's LAQ, so 1-800-527-527. It's a great resource. There's specialist lawyers that man that team. So if you do have someone under 18 who's charged with a criminal offence, they're the best number to call for that specialist advice.
Again, we can probably get through the next few slides fairly quickly. These are just, again, reiterating, I think, the sorts of areas you can get legal information, particularly from our websites, our fact sheets, our books. We have legal information about all of those things on the screen at the moment. Leaving relationships, applying for orders, dividing up your property. Again, here, have you been in an accident? If you've had a traffic accident, we've got guides. We can also book you in for some advice. Drink and drug driving, license disqualification, buying and selling cars. All of those things are available on our website and we can give advice on.
There's some great referrals there as well. I've noticed if you don't, we can't help. It gives great information about referral services, contacts. Yeah, it's really helpful.
Our website's very good. If we can't do it, we'll let you know who can. Personal rights and safety. Again, things like discrimination and sexual harassment. Have a look at our website. There's plenty of information there on all of those topics. So we've covered off sort of some key things. Legal information, that's all available on our website. Legal advice, we can book you into a specialist clinic to talk to a lawyer. And the third area that we're covered off is where we actually provide people with a lawyer to go to court or sometimes a tribunal, actually provide representation in court. And that happens in a number of ways. It can happen through a grant of aid, whereby we pay a lawyer, either one of our in-house lawyers or one of our many preferred supplier partners, private practitioners throughout Queensland who help us do our work. And we pay them a fee to go to court and represent people. That can, and I should say, that could also be in some mediation situations. So if you're having, for example, a family law dispute, one of the first steps before going to court is going through mediation processes. And we can actually support people in some circumstances. Lisa will cover off a little bit more about grants of aid, but in some circumstances, get them a lawyer to help them with their mediation. And they're all at courts, in Queensland on your screen at the moment where we can provide lawyers to assist as well. Yeah, so I've covered off mediation. Family law problems are the key one, and in some circumstances as well, property settlement issues, we can assist with that. It's not our focus. Our focus really is on helping separating parents work out who's going to look after the children and all of those parenting issues that come up after a separation. As I've said, one way that we can represent people is with our duty lawyer services, and we have duty lawyers almost every magistrates court in Queensland for criminal law matters. They can help by seeing the client on the day, looking at what the police information is that's been provided, giving them some preliminary advice about the charges they face, whether they might be eligible to go on and get a grant of aid. If the client is in custody, our lawyers can apply for bail for them. They can adjourn matters for people. And if it's a simple plea of guilty that can be done on the day, we can do that for the client there as well. So you don't actually have to apply for legal aid to get a duty lawyer. They are at the courts. You turn up, your clients will pop their name down, normally with a clerk who's there to take their details. And one of our lawyers will be available to see and talk to your clients on the day at court.
And that's for adults and children.
Adults and children, yep. And that's in the criminal courts, in the magistrates courts, but also we have in the federal circuit and family court, we have family law duty lawyers, very similar. They can help on the day with providing information and advice, helping sort out your court forms and documents, and also looking at whether you might be able to move on and get an actual grant of aid and have a lawyer representing you in the proceeding. Child protection and domestic violence, domestic and family violence duty lawyer. Again, this is in the magistrates courts in Queensland. They can discuss your situation and the options available to you, explain court processes, help with documents, and give referrals to organisations that might be able to support you.
Onto the fun stuff.
Onto the fun stuff, applying for a grant of aid.
Right. Hi everyone. Similar to Brad, it's great to see everyone online. In the many years that I've been at Legal Aid, just hearing how large Legal Aid's grown and all of the areas that are now covered, it's really impressive about what's happening with the work that we do here. So probably at that point about how to help your client apply for legal aid. So you've probably gone through a process where you've spoken to a client information officer, you've called, you've received some initial legal advice, and then what to do next. So we require what's called a legal aid application form. So it looks a little bit something like this. So it's a written form that we need to complete, and probably the most important thing that I could say today about completing an application form is that it needs to be signed. There are 2 spots for your client to sign. It's the second back page, and there's also accompanying documents, and I'll talk about that in a second, but there should be something else coming with this form, and when we get all of that together, it just speeds up the process, if eligible, to be able to give a grant of aid to your client or to yourself. So the application forms and where to get one, they're available at all of our offices. There's 14 locations across the state, and some of the last slides have the locations of those places. You can, criminal law, duty lawyer, family law, they'll have copies with them as well. You can go online to our website and you can download a form as well. There's a whole bunch of options there. And also if you see one of the, we call them preferred suppliers, so private law firms that work with legal aid and you're there for an appointment, they can also assist in completing an application form through their grants online process. So supporting documentation, again, this is, if you have a look at, and probably can't see it very well, there's an orange box in the middle here that talks about a checklist, and that helps you go through the types of things that we need. So one is we need financial information. So a copy of your client's most recent Centrelink income statement, if it's applicable. We also require bank statements and pay slips. So for pay slips, if someone's working at least 4 weeks of that. If they recently been moved employment or are no longer working, then still provide as many pay slips as you have for that 4-week period. And then in the back of the application form is a space where you can explain what's happened if there's been a change in employment. If someone's self-employed, we need tax returns and assessments. And the other one, this is something that perhaps tricks up a few people, is about copies of bank statements for all accounts for the past 3 months. So if your client or yourself has multiple bank accounts, then we need something not just for your main bank account, but for the other ones as well. And then the other important part is documents in relation to your legal problem. So for criminal matters, there's a box that talks about here, it's about what's called a QP9. So that is something that the Queensland Police Service provide about why a client's being charged and information about that. If you have a criminal or traffic history, documents on when you have to go to court, attach all of that as well. For the if you have a family law problem you're applying for, any court documents that you may have, but go through that checklist. If you're helping a client, go through that checklist as well. Tick those boxes. When we have all that information, yeah, it really speeds up the process and helps everyone get that help they need as quickly as they can. There's also a fantastic, and I went on the Legal Aid website as well myself recently. There's fantastic fact sheets.
Even we use it.
Even I use it. I did regularly, but it's about can I get legal aid? So it's a really large document, or not large document, it's a 2-page but very comprehensive document. And it also talks about our funding guidelines, means and merit test, which I'll talk about in a moment. The legal website is really a one-stop shop for all that information. So completing the form, so as mentioned before, is signature. So it's the second last page, and page 14 of the copy that I have, it needs to be signed. Without a signature, it's very difficult to process that application, if at all. Have a look at the website, check what we can fund, similar to what Brad's talked about with advice and representation, those criteria. Go through every page with your client, have a look through and complete everything. If it doesn't apply, it doesn't apply, but make sure all those boxes are ticked. And similar, it says if a client's seen a solicitor, so that's with the preferred supplier. So if a client doesn't have a solicitor and needs to email us, doesn't bring us a hard copy, but wants to email through or help your client email through, that email address, submit.application, is the best one and the quickest way for it to get to the grants department at Legal Aid. There's a few other ones, but they'll all eventually end up through this process again, quickest and best way to help your client. This is a really important one if you are helping someone apply for legal aid, or you're helping a family member, client, however it is all the information that Legal Aid has about a client, it's all confidential. So if I was to call up about if Brad's applied for legal aid, no one can tell me anything unless Brad's filled in a client authority form for the grant of aid. So again, I went onto the website yesterday to work out where it's located. So it's on the Legal Aid Queensland website under the tab called Get a Lawyer to Help You. You click on that link and you go down, there's a drop-down menu, and it is a client authority form. So that's really important. So if you're helping with a client.
Really important for those people who are, if you're supporting people to come to legal aid, we won't be able to talk to you in any detail about other people's affairs unless we have that on our file and our people can see it.
Yeah.
We can pop a link to that form in the email that we send out with the webinar recording.
Fantastic, that would be great. So print off, sign for that form, legal aid form, plus all the supporting documents. There'll be a bundle of things that are received by legal aid, and that just helps us be able to help your client as soon as we possibly can. So who is eligible for legal aid? This is where it's really important about booking legal advice if you think you're fitting into one of those categories your client is, or talking to one of our client information officers as well to help. And there's also a grants line that I'll talk about in a moment. So everyone can access the free legal information on the Legal Aid website. Okay. We've talked about the specific advice representation, but they're only available to eligible applicants. And as Brad mentioned, our advice services, we're targeting financially disadvantaged Queenslanders. And a grant of legal aid, it's not an automatic entitlement. So what we do is to try and help prioritise our funding. There are 3 tests you'll often hear people talk about. One, there are guidelines, there's our means test, and in most cases, there's a merit test. So flip to the next one. So the first one you'll talk about is means test. And it's to work out whether someone is financially eligible for legal aid. So it looks at a number of things. It looks at a person's income, their assets, and how many people they support. So it could be a partner or children. It also takes into account the income and assets of anyone who helps them financially. So the information we talked about, income should be included in the application. So your client will need to tell us about money they regularly receive. So that can include salary or wages, if it's applicable. It can include money received from investments, so shares, rent like investment properties, payments from trusts, and there's information website that, in the legal aid application form that covers all that information that's required. It also includes information that might be received from a work cover claim. Also, family tax benefit, Part A and B, any child support, child maintenance, any of those payments include all that information. The more, rather than having less information, the more about all that information I think is best. Also, any Centrelink, if your client's relying on Centrelink information to confirm that payment. So for assets, it gets a little bit trickier. So again, more information the better here. So assets that are taken into account include someone's that have house or land, cash, can be cars, again, shares. And there are certain assets that are exempt from the assets test at legal aid. So again, everything is quite unique and quite specific to individual circumstances. So the best option, if you have any questions about would your client fit into that means test, have a look on the website. Look at the fact sheets that are there. It talks about the income and the thresholds for assets, but also if you have any questions on the application form, there's a number. It's called the Grants Inquiry Line, and I'll give it out, and I'll also include with Catherine that we can include details, but it's 1300 383 900. So that's a direct for the Grants Division at Legal Aid that can assist with any inquiries. So some of the questions that we are often asked about is what are the special circumstances in relation to a means test? Again, we have developed guidelines to help identify applicants who would not normally meet our means test, but may perhaps have special circumstances. And that could be including someone who's experiencing domestic or family violence, has a disability, over 70 years of age, and there's a number of other requirements there. But again, more details on our website, and always best, give us a call first, talk to your client information officer. They're trained and they have great information. They'll be able to help you and your client direct on what's the best option and how to get that ball rolling with an application form. So after we have a means test, we then hit our merit test. So that is, there's a couple of different ways it will be described, but is we assess the merit of a person's case. And there's a couple of things we look at. So we look at what's the legal status of the matter? What are the factual merits of the case? And the test is it more likely to succeed rather than fail if it was to go to court for your client? We also look at something that's referred to as the prudent self-funded litigant test. It really is would a sensible person risk their money to take the case to court? So the number of things that we have a look at in relation to that. And also the final part of that merit test is, would the benefit to the applicant, so your client, having a lawyer, does it justify the spending of the limited public funds on that particular case? As Brad mentioned before, we have a limited pool of money. We would love to help everyone, but it's just the funding is not there. But what we can do is we've really targeted that funding to assist as many clients as possibly can. So again, if in doubt, and information at the back of the form, include information, include those court documents your client has, include extra information about why your client requires assistance.
Our grants officers will scrutinise all of that information very carefully. So as Lisa has said, the more information you provide, the better it is, and probably the quicker you'll get an answer.
That's right, yeah. And the final part of assessing a grant of aid is the guidelines. So they tell us what their priorities that are set by the state and federal government, and they're really encompassing what Brad's spoken about before. There's civil, there's criminal, and there's family areas of law. importantly, if someone is very interested and again on the website, there's all that information under the grants policy manual and our handbook that talks about the types of matters if you're unsure, or if you would like to read to help inform, assist your client, giving us a call. But if in doubt, like Brad said, it is putting all the information that we possibly can, signing your application form, getting the client authority signed by your client, including all the bank statements, all the financial information, and then getting it either to your front counter or through that submit application email we have.
Yeah.
That's it in a quick nutshell.
Wow.
Oh, sorry, and that's for that one. I've forgotten, I've looked down at my wrong notes. So we've completed everything, applications forms been signed, everything's with us, it's been assessed by a grants officer, and your client, if they're eligible, they'll receive something called a grant of aid. So in practice, what happens is your client will receive a letter that will provide information about the nature and the extent of the funding. It'll also have information about who their lawyer is. That's probably the most important thing. If your client brings you one of those letters or you receive one of those letters, it'll have who your lawyer is, give them a call, introduce yourself, get the contact information, and then you can start that process running with having your lawyer involved. So you'll often hear that grant of aid word, and that's what that means. So sometimes if your client doesn't agree with the decision that's been provided, so that could be a refusal to be able to provide aid in a certain circumstance, your client can request a review of that decision. So it's important that it must be in writing, and there are a number of opportunities for reviewing decisions we have throughout a certain process. But the most important thing, again, if you're supporting a client with that, is if they are refused aid or a decision is made, they'll receive a letter. That letter has the information that will be able to help guide where their review is and what it looks like. So again, have a read of that letter. You can call with them, go through that process, but it's important that it must be in writing. Okay, but definitely have a read of the letter. That's the best place. That letter will also include numbers on who to call for our review teams, and if not, that same grants inquiry line is the first port of call if you're ever concerned with the client. So the top tips for applying for legal aid, mentioned this a few times, but it is very important. It helps our assessment process. So a complete application form is quicker. Bank statements rather than transaction listings are always helpful. Include all pages of Centrelink income statement. The symbol in the top right of the slide here, that's really a guide to saying something needs to be attached. In special cases, there may also be orders in relation to an Office of the Public Guardian being involved, or the Public Trustee, or QCAT orders. If you think that may apply to you or to your clients, it's really important to include those as well as extra information. Again, the client authority form, and don't wait until the court dates to get all the information in. Apply as early as you can to avoid delays. It helps us, if you're eligible or your client's eligible, is to give you that grant of aid as soon as we possibly can. That's probably the main hot tips that I've got today. Yeah.
Great.
I'm definitely finished now.
I just wanted to, we're getting towards the end, and I'm sure you'll have questions. I just wanted to briefly touch on this service that we have, and it's one that I'm very proud of because it's just been made permanent. So we've got permanent funding for this team. It's a small team. Our Client Assistance Service, or CAS as we refer to it, is a holistic trauma-informed service that helps our most vulnerable clients not only navigate legal aid, because as you can see, sometimes even getting all of this information for a legal aid application together can be difficult for some people, particularly if they've got mental health issues, they're experiencing violence, they're homeless. So we have this dedicated service now. It's a small team, but it gives them a single point of contact at legal aid where they're particularly vulnerable clients, helps them navigate the legal aid processes. We can book them in for advice and make sure that they get their appointment and turn up for their appointment. We can give some assistance on gathering documents and pointing people in the right direction. And whilst we have them in that service, if they are having vulnerability issues with mental health or homelessness, or or violence, we do make sure that they're hooked in with other support services that can help them as well.
Mm.
Just wanted to quickly touch on that. That's a service. Unfortunately, it's not a service we are currently taking many external referrals for, but if you do have a client that is dealing with legal aid, if our CIOs become aware that they have these vulnerabilities and need that extra support, they will be referred to that service. So they're the sorts of things that CAS does, identify the legal and the non-legal issues, helping them to submit their application, obtaining documents, explaining those grants processes. We can spend a lot more time on the phone with these people or with these people, arranging for advice and, as I say, giving referrals for other issues, helping them develop safety plans, referring them to counselling, and they regularly check in and follow up with the client as they're moving through the legal aid process. Okay, so we've spoken a lot today about calling us, our contact centre, our client information officers. They're all of our phone numbers. They're available on almost all of our publications and on our website. Our legal information line, the youth legal advice hotline, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander hotline, the natural disaster line, which we spoke a little bit about. Probably I've made a bit of a mistake on this slide. The Defence and Veterans Legal Service and Your Story are no longer in existence. They were particular services that we did have to support royal commissions, but they're no longer in effect. I'll have to get them taken off for next time. Sorry, I missed that one. Okay. Also through our website, the Contact Us form will come through to one of our CIOs who'll be able to respond with information. As I said, officers, 14 of them right throughout Queensland, length and breadth of the state, from as far west as Mount Isa, north to Cairns, down to Southport, and basically everywhere in between.
I might just jump in and mention a little bit about Legal Aid's community legal education program. So just as a quick overview, we present monthly webinars like this one to frontline workers just to tell you about our services and how to refer clients to us. So if you're not already, please jump on our mailing list so you can stay in the know about what webinars we have coming up. You can also request for one of our staff to come and do an information session either to your clients or to your colleagues at your location, and that's something we do quite regularly. So please email us if that's something you're interested in, and I'll put contact details for how to do that in the email I send to everyone. We also attend numerous community events all across Queensland where we provide legal information, and at some we even provide legal advice. Like one of the next big ones we have coming up is the Homeless Connect event in Brisbane on the 7th of November. We've got a range of our lawyers who are there on the day providing like information and advice to clients as they need it on the day. So if you do have a community event that you want us to come along to, send us an invitation. If we have capacity, we'll come along. And that's our email address there at the bottom of that slide, cle@legalaid.qld.gov.au. But I'll put that again in the email to everyone after the webinar recording's available. We've reached question time, and we've had quite a few questions come through during the webinar. So I'm just going to bring up the question box now, and I'll make it pop out so I can see it. Now I'm just going to go through quickly because I think we've answered some of these as we go through, but I'll throw these over to you, Bradley and Lisa, as we go. So the first question is, when a client has a QCAT issue against local government, is there another service they should contact for free legal advice?
There are many community legal centres that we could probably refer to. I don't have our organisations directory in front of me at the moment, and I just can't think off the top of my head. I'd have to do some searching, but there are many community legal centres throughout Queensland who might be able to assist with that.
Yep, great. Next question. What help does LAQ provide in regional Queensland for people who've got DV matters who are not able to access the local legal service because of conflict of interest?
That's a really good question, actually. It's something I'm actually doing a bit of work on at the moment. Look, if there is for legal aid's perspective, if there is a conflict of interest, for example, in that example, it might be that one of our in-house lawyers is already acting for one of the people in the dispute. If that's the case, we make sure that the other party, if they're financially eligible, so if they meet that criteria, can still get a grant of aid. You might have heard me mention before that we have preferred supplier or partner firms. So we have a number of great lawyers here in-house at Legal Aid who can support people, but we can't do all the work ourselves. In fact, probably about 70 to 80% of it is done by private law firms in Queensland who partner with us, and we pay them a fee to do work on our behalf. So if there is a conflict, we can manage that, often by engaging one of our preferred suppliers to help either give the advice or conduct the casework.
Thank you. The next question is from a frontline worker who works with vulnerable and homeless people. What happens if a person with these vulnerabilities doesn't have access to financial documents? Like, is that a barrier to them completing the application form?
It's not. You might. I'm jumping in.
Oh, you go, Brad.
This is Lisa's wheelhouse.
No, go for it.
You might have heard Lisa say when she was talking about as much information as you possibly can, but we do understand that sometimes these documents might not be available for various reasons. You might have heard Lisa talk about the fact that there is a space in the form. It's a kind of a free text area where you can provide. If there's a reason why you can't get a document, I would probably spell that out in the say, look, we can't access it because of these reasons. It just lets our grants officer know that there is that issue, and it might even be something perhaps that our client assistance service could help support the client getting those documents that are needed.
Thank you. We've had a couple of questions now on the next topic. So this is from frontline workers who support women experiencing financial abuse or domestic violence. And they've said, like, while on paper they aren't financial disadvantaged, they don't have access to their funds. So how does Legal Aid take this into account?
Similar to what Brad said before about the earlier example, is the more information, the better. If there is no access to bank accounts or there's issues with that, you need to include that information in the second back page in the free text box about why that information can't be supplied. That can be provided to our grants officer. Grants officers may be in contact with the client then to confirm information or find out. There's also a number of special circumstances, as mentioned before, that we can look at. But starting point, go through, talk to the CIO, ensure they doesn't prevent a client accessing free legal advice on a particular issue first. That's a great start point. And then at the application form, more information about explanation about why that can't be provided at first instance.
Thank you. Now, someone's just asked about like why we no longer have the Veterans and Defence Services legal information line. We no longer have funding to deliver.
Well, so actually, that was a specialist. So I can just very quickly, because I ran that service here in Queensland. That was a national legal service. It was specifically set up to help people who were engaging with the Royal Commission into Defence and Veterans Suicide. So that Royal Commission has come to an end, and it's delivered its final report to government well over a year ago now, and consequently the funding for that service ceased at that time. So it was a unique service specifically set up for that. If we do have any people here supporting veterans or veterans, go to our website. Legal Aid can still offer some information and referrals to support defence and veterans as well. But that service was just a unique, specific service for that Royal Commission.
Okay, the next question. How long does a complete application take to process and get a response, yes or no?
Well, and there are many variables in relation to that. We aim to get them approved as soon as possible. We work through as you can imagine, there's a number of applications received as soon as possible. It's kind of how long is a piece of string. I wouldn't want to hold a grants officer to it, but important that complete the application form. If a court date is coming up and your client is particularly concerned or there's any issues, then they can contact our grants inquiry line. That's a really great way of speaking to a grants officer, speaking to someone in the grants division for an update. If that client authority is provided as well, it also allows yourself and someone you're supporting to be able to contact and get an update for your client. But the earlier the better. If you know something's happening or a court date's coming up, as soon as you possibly can.
It can sometimes take a few weeks.
It can take a few weeks, yeah.
The next question is, do we advise on appeals under the section 222 of the Justices Act?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Another person asked about the Your Story Disability Legal Support line, and we'll just point out again that we are no longer funded to deliver that service. That was
That was another Royal Commission into people with violence, neglect and abuse of people with disability. There was a national Royal Commission and again a national legal service that was funded to support that Royal Commission. That Royal Commission has also now wound up and it's given its report to all levels of government. And yeah, that service was specifically set up to help people who are engaging with that commission who needed some legal advice about what protections they had if they were going to give evidence to those commissions and how they could make a submission to that commission. So, but because that Royal Commission is finished, that service has also now been wound up.
So that's it for the questions we've received. We've got a couple more minutes left of the webinar. So if you do have any further questions, please pop them through. But in the interim, I'll just run through our last couple of slides and then I'll check back if any more questions have come through. So we've run through our contact details several times, so I won't keep this one on screen for long, but we will include all these phone lines in the email that we send to you after the webinar recording is available. Just to reiterate that we've got an amazing range of over 80 legal information publications, fact sheets, guides, brochures, wallet cards, all available for free on our website. And they are actually available to order for free and have delivered, like with free delivery as well. So if you need any of these in stock at your organisation, you can go on our website and order them and they'll be delivered to you. We do run monthly webinars and we are currently planning our next webinar. In November, we'll be running a webinar on how to support clients appearing before the Mental Health Review Tribunal and in the Mental Health Court. Date and time to be revealed very soon, but keep an eye out for that one if you're interested. We do have social media accounts and we promote our services and our webinars on those as well. So please give us a follow on Facebook, LinkedIn and Instagram if you'd like to learn more about what we've got coming up. You can also watch all of our captioned webinars on Legal Aid's YouTube channel. So we'll add this one. There's a playlist on there that I'll send you a link to. So please feel free to go back and have a look at some of the webinars we've run this year and from earlier years. Now, I'll just quickly check if there's any more questions that have come through. Can Legal Aid Queensland assist clients with NDIS appeals at the ART?
Can I get back to you about this? I'm not in any way a specialist in NDIS law. In fact, both of our backgrounds are in fact criminal law. So I don't know specifically what that is, but I'm happy to.
We can follow that up individually with your comments. So I'll make a note of that and we'll get back to you individually. That is all the questions. Oh, actually, one more has just snuck through at one time. If a person has a mortgage or home, is this an asset that is automatically disqualifies them from a grant?
No, it doesn't automatically disqualify someone. The home can be an asset and there's a lot of tests that go into it in relation to how much equity there is, depending on whether there's any special circumstances that apply. So again, that message I keep going back to is contact the CIOs, contact your front counter, contact the grants information inquiry line, and they'll be able to step you through that process. There's also a lot of information about income, assets, and all the limits associated with that on the website as well.
Yeah. Great. that's all we have time for. Unfortunately, it is now 2 o'clock, so we're going to end the webinar there. The recording will be available in the next few days, so please keep a lookout for an email about that in your inbox soon. And thank you again for making time to join us today. We hope you can make it to the next one. Thank you. That's it from us. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.